and let us all do we can to build a better future.
The honeymoon phase of Kamala Harris is ending. It's been here a while. We've seen her polls. She's gone from losing guaranteed to, she's in the margin of error. Maybe she'll win. Flip a coin. Maybe it's still a benefit Trump. But yeah, it's like we're watching all of these established. And another thing is that we're watching all of these narratives that people have been building over time. Reality can only hold one narrative over the long term. This is why humans go to war so often, I think, is that the worst thing that you could possibly give humanity is two good options, because people get entrenched in two options, even if they're not good, especially when they're not good. And only one can be reality. And that's what so many people are fighting. Who's going to be left? So let's talk about what's happening next with Kamala and her inevitable decline. She's hit the peak of her stage. Let's talk about it.
Oh God, I sure hope so, because I am already sick of hearing about her.
We're going to keep going, but this was the best shot that the Democrats could do.
And sort of point out, we've kind of been here before. So August 13th, how far were the polls off in Michigan, Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin? And this is in 2016 and 2020. Trump was estimated both times around and by significant margins. Take a look here in 2016.
Oh, 538, by the way.
In those states I mentioned, those great.
That's Nate Silver's old operation.
Underestimated by 9 points on average at this point in 2016. How about 2020? It wasn't a one-off. Look at this. He was underestimated by 5 points on average. And of course, Kamala Harris's advantage in those New York Times Siena College polls were 4 points in each of these key battleground states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin.
They're literally factoring in. Yeah, we get it wrong and we underpoll a bunch. So I'm sure that the religious community watching him survive an assassination probably won't make that number go up this time, I'm sure.
No, I mean, what's funny is 538 used to be run by Nate Silver. He sold it to Disney, and they took it. He was running it for them. He's now completely gone. That's another corporate media guy who's now independent, quote unquote, on Substack, running his own thing. Yeah. All right. User funded. So that's where like all this user funded stuff that it's all going to go to the personalities and the names. And that's what I've been worried about, is they're going to suck up a lot of the independent money dollars, because, oh, well, he's now over on his own. I now have to support Nate Silver because he does important work to poll people, even though it's completely biased for Democrats, right?
So here's the catch with that, though. This is where it actually will benefit us. Again, the people that right now we're in a big consolidation. I'm going to tell you guys right now, a lot of the independent news channels that you guys like aren't going to be around in 2 years. It's just and it's not just it's like every single category of every single industry is going to go through this in the next couple of years. It's inevitable. The people that survive are going to be the next era. Just like, TYT. Remember when everyone liked TYT like 10 years ago? And now literally almost every major news channel are people that spun off and were like, no, I don't like TYT anymore. Like all the big people out right now are all people that were like, I don't like TYT anymore. I'm going to start my own thing. This is the era. So we're going to go through this process. And TYT's has been old news at this point, even though they still get a decent amount of views. But just like everything else, they're going to completely just die off like television does. We're just cycling through new skin cells on this body. Anyway, speaking of cycling through skin cells, let's keep looking at this.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that Bernie media to die off.
If you're a Kamala Harris fan and you want to rip open the champagne bottle, pop that cork, do not do it. Donald Trump is very much in this race. If we have a polling shift like we've seen in prior years from now until the final result, Donald Trump would actually win. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I am saying that he is very much in this ball game based upon where he is right now, and compare that to where he was in prior years.
We certainly heard the Harris campaign saying we have to keep fighting.
Absolutely.
This is definitely not over. All right. Let's talk about enthusiasm.
I love that they're literally like, well, the campaign has told us they're going to keep fighting. They literally that's not even just listen how she phrases it. This is how an employee would phrase this.
This is definitely not over. All right. Let's talk about enthusiasm and how that translates actually.
Oh, wait, I didn't jump far enough back.
Quite a ways out again.
But I am saying that he is very much in this ball game based upon where he is right now, and compare that to where he was in prior years.
We certainly heard the Harris campaign saying we have to keep fighting.
Absolutely.
This is definitely not over. All right.
It's funny. I think she's referring not to the campaign, but to CNN.
Enthusiasm.
Right.
translates actually. We are quite a ways out
Because
again.
remember, again, this was what I said earlier. Most of the people on these networks, on CNN and MSNBC, are filled with people that will get jobs in government with a Democratic power, and they won't with a Republican.
That's about.
Or at least they'll be employed by MSNBC, because MSNBC won't want to hear what they have to say if Republicans win.
And what happens when there's no more MSNBC as a main power base? So that's what I was going to say. That
I
even though
can't
you're right about all the money, the difference is most of the premium money for advertising still goes to TV. The cost to buy TV ads is still so much higher than internet. At some point, all of that money is going to be internet money. So you're right. They're going to have more of an advantage, but I still think on level, independent media will actually have a better position. That's my guess.
Well, it's also why you're seeing, though, most of the advertising on corporate media is like car companies, Pfizer, defense contractors. I mean, they're keeping corporate media afloat with their advertising dollars. It's not the little guys. They can't afford to compete at the national level. You've got car dealerships that, by the way, are also subsidized by the manufacturers to buy this local TV advertising and buy this local newspaper advertising. They're not pulling this $50,000 a weekend out of their own pocket to do an ad. They're getting subsidized 50 to 100% of the ad based on how much the ad is in compliance and in line with what the manufacturer wants. They're basically advertising on behalf of the manufacturer, and that's where a lot of that other money goes.
Yeah, and I also just want to pull this up real quick. I know it's a little separate from what we're doing, but it's on the same thing. I'm just going to see if I can get an image of this up. But just, I want to really, the world is going to be so different. So I just want to pull this up here. This is because we're sort of getting on the same topic. Television is already falling down. But my point is that this bar right here is going to effectively 1/10 of the viewership as this bar goes to. And they're always going to spend this much money combined every single year on ads, because that's you put money in, you get more money out.
It's more every year. Look.
And my point is that this decline is going to be a lot faster, but that money is just going to end up going on to digital advertising.
It's still going to be $20 to $40 billion. Look, it's still going to be a substantial amount of money to keep these networks afloat. So,
yeah.
But their influence will wane over time. Not only that, but you look at their average demographic, and their base is dying, literally.
No, but I'm saying is I think that the big kick is going to happen in the next couple years. I don't know the exact year it happens. I should know this. It's when that cable renegotiation happens, which I think is happening in the next year or two. And when that happens, again, most of news income is not from TV advertisement. It's like 40% comes from TV advertisement. Most of their money is the subscription revenue, and that gets negotiated every quarter century. And again, when it was last negotiated, there was no internet competition. And now internet is already bigger than television is. So they could they could literally double their advertisement. They could triple their advertisement revenue. And if they lost the cable bundle, they would still lose money. That's what's going to screw them, because the only thing keeping these companies from losing everything is they can't run on they can't run on marketing. They just can't even operate close to their overhead. I'm not sure they can pay rent with their marketing that they get from ads. It's going to destroy them immediately the second that they don't have that.
Yeah.
And then again, it's going to be a big chaotic run for who's in power next. Anyway, let's keep going.
Ticket was up. Yeah. But that enthusiasm is not the same thing as going out to actually vote. And there's a different question, which essentially says, how certain are you actually going to go out and vote? And this is the top range. Almost certain to vote. Again, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. This is among registered voters. Look at this. Look at Kamala Harris now compared to where Joe Biden was back in May. In fact, 62% of Joe Biden voters said they were almost certain to turn out and vote. Now,
the numbers aren't trending well for them.
It's down a little bit. I would call this in the same general area at 61%, but it's basically unchanged. And look at Donald Trump. He was at 58% in May. He's actually gone up a little bit now. He's at 60% now. Again, basically no real change. So the bottom line here is, yeah.
Look at her face as they zoom out. Like they're all like, "Oh no, our jobs." Look at her
Again,
face.
basically no real change. So the bottom line.
She gives that
Yeah,
really.
but I love how it's just Biden or Harris voters. Yeah. So basically, everybody except for 1% just accepted their spoon-fed anointment, and the brainwashing worked.
But this is the thing. Also, she's in honeymoon phase, and the certainty to go out and vote has gone down.
Yeah.
Imagine what it's going to look like after when she starts talking again.
Well, it's still an anointment. Honeymoon or not, there are at least some people, I believe, that, like us, that have looked at this and been like, yeah, this isn't cool.
It's also funny how they color it. Like, someone put in chat, like, what was it? Maybe read that. I thought this was funny. You can draw a circle. That's basic. Again, this is what you pay these guys millions of dollars to do, to draw circles and read a teleprompter.
No real change. So the bottom line here is, yes, there may be more enthusiasm for Kamala Harris, but the fact is we're not seeing that necessarily translate in the almost certain vote. And one little other note, Sarah, I will note this. Donald Trump is more popular today than he was on August 13th in either 2020 or 2016. So
that's frightening.
Kamala Harris is doing better in the polls, but there's a long way to go. The polls can shift. The almost certain vote hasn't actually shifted, and Donald Trump is more popular than he was at either 2016 or 2020 at this point.
Again, this is happening during her honeymoon phase. If it's a real okay, we know what happens. You go up and then you come back down to reality. The fact that her honeymoon phase, people are like less likely to vote, and she's only within the margin of error, where Trump is actually creeping up. Again, there's no excuse for Trump to even be competitive in general. Democrats on paper have a complete demographic majority, everything, but they felt so confident that they can just keep rolling off Trump is evil, Trump is bad. And again, I said earlier, every single talking point that they've built up on Trump over 8 years has been flipped entirely as a weakness attack. They can't say he's a fascist anymore because of everything that happened. It's like every single thing that they had, it's like if this is a video game, every single thing they have got nerfed and more expensive at the same time. At the same time, Trump got buffed. And sure, they have this little thing that's happening right now. But again, I'll leave this next video. Again, Kamala comes in. Why is Waltz being? It's like they know that they're screwed. It's like this is the worst case scenario. The Democrats, like, this is like if everything had just gone well and Biden hadn't done this thing, they would have just kept pushing it as far as they could. He's the president for sure. But again, they can't. No party should ever be able to lose to Trump. You have to be a special type of incompetent to lose to Trump. But we live in an era of special types of incompetence.
How hard has inflation hit you?
It hit me hard. It's hitting me hard.
What do you blame for it?
I blame the federal government at this point. If a working class mom who works as a paralegal cannot buy a $2 bell pepper because it's now $5, imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us.
Yep.
If you understand that. They're killing us without telling us they're killing us. They're hurting people in ways that they can't help themselves. It's either feed my child or how about feed my children and I don't, but I have to go work.
How hard has inflation hit you?
So this is the reality of the situation and it's humans exist on two levels. Okay. We're two people at the same time because we have two brains, two halves, two lobes, left and right. We have the logical part of our brain that does that type of problem solving. And then you have the emotional. It's basically just two. It's like, you can look at the world of physics through general relativity, or you can look at it through quantum mechanics. They both have different math. One's based on hard numbers. One's based on probability. One is a top-down look at the laws of science. One is a bottom-up look at the laws of science. They explain it completely differently using different math, but they result in effectively the same outcome when you do that math together, even though they aren't truly compatible. That's what the human minds are. And everyone's picking, it's like, oh, a logic. Everything that humanity is doing is hitting a head right now and falling apart. People in power, it's like, this is an era where people want something different. And Democrats have just picked over and over again. Like Bernie Sanders. I remember we used to be real big Bernie Sanders guys, right?
All of us.
Yeah. And it's like, look at it now. He let his campaign. What did Bernie do? Bernie bowed out to give the Democratic Party a win that they never got. Twice. Because if you, it just we're watching, Americans suffer. We're watching the world suffer. And what are the elites doing? They're arguing about who gets power in this big transition period because it's super important. And we have another video, but it's like, we're watching the end of this honeymoon phase that only lasted a few weeks because, by the way, do you guys know that there's also wars going on? Remember, we used to talk about that all the time. Remember, Ukraine used to be like, oh my God, Ukraine. Then it was Israel-Palestine. Then it was the assassination. Then it was the debate. It's like, there's so much happening. The amount of...
Squirrel.
Yeah, literally. Like, oh my God, it dropped an eggcorn. Shoot it. The world is insane right now. And I feel like everyone feels like they're insane and feels like the world's insane. But reality is we're all acting normally in an insane situation, which from a neutral point of view appears like everyone's acting insane. But we're really just acting normally in an insane situation.
She's using her color. I thought that Martin Luther King said the color wasn't the issue. I thought it was the content of our character that we were supposed to be recognized for. But if she's going to keep running on that color, she's going to have a misconception about how black people really wrong.
If you bring somebody into office that looks like you, but then continues to detriment your community, what was that for?
Black faces in high places.
Who can raise your community? Then you chose the right one.
Wait,
So
who do you choose?
personally, I choose Trump.
I'm looking for who I think is more qualified to.
It's Newsmax, guys.
That's all I'm looking at.
Black Latinos are starting to be a little bit more critical. They're fed up of their hard-earned money going to illegal, undocumented people.
Kamala Harris did not do a good job on the border because from what I know, a lot of people were coming from the other side.
I just want to pause. That's a really good point to remember because, again, if everyone can tell the story that they want with the evidence that's available. Newsmax can easily go out, find everyone that can say this. They just have to interview enough people till that happens. The exact same thing happens with them.
All people of color, by the way. Notice they're all people of color.
Again, they're picking their argument because that's what you can do when you set up these segments. You know that there's a percentage of people that are going to have this view. And so you send a camera crew up. It's again, like when me and Kit were in the first 2 years of Hardlands, when we basically interviewed every single person in the city, we saw how mainstream media operates. And so what they'll do is they'll go around and they'll find the people that they're looking for that'll be able to say this. And again, every single news agency does this, corporate media specifically. Yep. They're going to find the people that tell their story and they're going to throw away the footage of all the people that don't. Or conversely, you'll have an independent person that goes out and gets all these interviews, and then all the ones that are pro-Biden, they sell to NBC. All the ones that are pro-Trump, they sell to Newsmax. So even though all of these are real interviews with real people, just like every other thing, it's building the story that they want to build with reality to tell a reality that's their reality, because Newsmax makes money if this becomes real. MSN makes money from their interviews becoming real too.
Cornel West, I said blackface in high places. Cornel West was once a candidate for president too. I think he might actually still be running. What happened there? It's really sad. Again, I think that there were some ops that were sent out in order to split the left vote. And I think that also happened. A lot of people vote Jill Stein and chill. No, don't chill. That's what the Democrats count on you to do, is to just vote and go back to brunch and count on them to do it all. And how did that work out last time? Yeah, Cornel who, But in the meantime, look, I'm a team none of the above guy because I'm in a state that's rigged anyway, that's going to vote a certain way. I'll vote locally, but I am not giving consent to either one of these parties, and I'm not giving consent to the system itself. And that's why I'm team none of the above.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is broken.
There's no winning. Right now, we're in an era of destruction. There's nothing that can really be built and bloom right now. There's stuff that can be built that'll bloom in the future. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what Kit's trying to do. That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But right now, we're in an era of destruction. Anyway, let's finish this Newsmax segment.
And doing a lot of bad things to what we call home.
I think she's not a good candidate for president because she's with Joe Biden for the past 2 years, a wreck up in New York,
Colors don't matter, man.
Right, they don't.
Ask God, man.
That's true. So what do you think about a candidate that uses their race as a selling point? Do you think
that's some weird
that's weird?
You lost already, 2024.
Yeah.
If you racist today.
And let me also put out there that I remember this, it almost feels like it dates me, but I think everyone sort of has the same feeling. Do you remember when we really had hope for Black Lives Matter or Me Too? I thought when Me Too came out, like, wonderful, regular women will have the ability to protect themselves because of the societal shift. But the reality is it ended up being multimillionaire women got to make more multi-million dollars. And the second that, we're going after Joe Biden now, never mind, Me Too doesn't exist anymore. Black Lives Matter is great until, now all the money is getting siphoned to the Democratic Party and the founders are buying mansions with donated money. Everything is, you can't build anything right now. And again, right now, Kamala's coming in with a look at the demographic advantage I have argument at the moment that entire argument itself is collapsing. That's why I said earlier, the Democrats turbo boned themselves on every single topic. Everything that was an advantage for them 3 weeks ago is now a weakness on like every single front, because you couldn't make it. If this video got made a month ago, they would have like 3 interviews. They would not have a dozen people that they're circulating through.
Yeah.
You lost. Nobody going against Trump.
It's not about race. It's about what they provide for the society, is what they could do for the community.
With her putting a lot of Black Americans in jail for the marijuana, they're not really going for her.
We also got people's thoughts on Trump's recent comments on Harris's ethnicity.
She was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black.
Yeah, she was Hindu when it suited her purpose.
So that's the other thing about that. Like, sure, it looks bad as a line for, again, right now, Trump can be really stupid and he has the ability to be really stupid in what he does. And I saw that whole interview when he went on there. He felt ambushed. He was defensive. They got a clip out of it. Sure. Whoa, win. But the other problem is, again, every strength is now a weakness for the Democrats. It's like everyone's like, oh, it's not a real issue. It is an issue for people in the Democratic side, because the Democrats have told people that you have to be very segregated in this thinking of what race is. And so again, every strength is a weakness. The fact that this segment has so many people talking, because again, when they do something like this, they won't pay a camera person to go out for like 3 days straight to find enough interviews, but they're going to pay the guy like 4 hours time to go put this together. Again, the fact that there are so many people they were able to find is a big deal.
Yes. And now that she's running, the Black vote suits her purpose. So, like Trump said, now
because
she's Black.
This shouldn't
Donald Trump is
and be
absolutely
effective,
right.
but it
her
is.
Mother Indian, her father's Irish Hindu, and she's always presented herself as Indian.
What do you think about Trump saying Kamala Harris is Black? I thought she was Indian. She was saying she was Indian.
That's my response. Trump is an open book, yo. Facts.
That's just Trump being Trump. I don't believe he's racist. I don't even think he has a racist bone in his body.
Trump said that Kamala Harris always portrayed herself to be Indian, and now all of a sudden she's saying she's Black.
Right? Nah, she's really Indian. She just want our support. She's trying to snatch our support away from Trump. But that's not how that's going down.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's again, the fact that even has the ability to be made says a lot. Again, I think they could have made a video like that at any time, but to get that many people and the time that it would take to find those interviews is a big deal to me. And again, if you go down this group identity path, it really does matter to people that believe in that way of group identity over individual identity thinking. If someone says they're one race and they change. And again, reality doesn't matter. We're living in an era where perception is more important than reality, because we're at a point of humanity where if people perceive something to be real, it becomes real. If enough people believe in it long enough, because truth is a measurement of willpower. So,
yeah, it's narrative management, propaganda works. It's effective. All right. And the way that they blast stuff across the board. Okay. This Frank Luntz is a pollster. These guys, they focus group words. And look, Make America Great was a focus grouped phrase. Build Back Better was a focus group phrase. And you know what? They get all their people across all the corporate media networks talking about it, and their writers in the newspapers. And all of a sudden, you hear people regurgitating this crap to each other on the street. It just happens.
What's been crazy to me is I learned this little phrase called a constellation of belief, which is actually a really good way to think of things, is that you can look at someone, and if you know just a few things, like if someone likes Andrew Tate, you can infer a lot of things about the person.
Mm-hmm.
You're almost guaranteed to be right. Just because these groups, okay, here's the big issue that I think we're dealing with. I think that if I could explain why things are so crazy right now, it's this. All of human history, going back to when we were hunter-gatherers, humans have been community-based creatures, where you knew the people that were your home, your community were, your church, and your work, which is generally your community and your church anyway. That has been how humans have organized themselves forever. All of a sudden, the internet, social media comes around, and we switch from a geographic-based or relationship status of anyone. You have to talk to people that you disagree with all the time, to I can hyper-focus my specific point of view to this group of people that exist all over the planet.
Echo chamber.
And it creates the worst type of echo chambers, and social media makes the most money by continuing to segregate those out because you can target ads better. And so I think personally that all of the chaos that we're dealing with right now in the world is that shift is happening of community-based relationships, which have their own hierarchies that have been built and stable for thousands of years. And now we're switching to a new model of human existence. And it is uprooting everything that exists, all tradition. Because I know that when people get scared, what do? They try to create a different future, or they try to go back to the past. And neither of those are accessible right now. So everyone's just going insane.
Eat the bugs. You will own nothing and be happy. We know that there's a group of people that are trying to orchestrate our future. And there's a group of people that are calling the ones that are screaming the warning bells about that group conspiracy theorists. I think that's still going on to a point where even though these people have put their agenda right out there on Main Street for everybody to see, well, it's benevolent. It's not really as bad as you think it is. And it's not really. No, it is. The capitalists have taken over everything. They're jacking up rents. They're jacking up the prices. They're making it impossible to live and survive. And oh yeah, they're criminalizing homelessness on top of it, and criminalizing direct action so that you can intervene on behalf of your neighbor. They literally criminalized feeding people in line for a poll because they claim that as buying favor for an election.
Do you know? Have you heard of the poverty laws of the in the British Empire in the 1800s, 1700s, or I think?
I'm guessing now.
Okay, it was a time. Let me explain this period of time to you. It might sound really foreign, really different than what we're living through now. It was when the British Empire was really at the peak of its empire status, when it had a huge extent. This is before. Well, this is when they're having this crazy thing called income inequality, where there's a lot of haves and have-nots. And so what ended up happening is a lot of people became homeless and were beggars on the street. Crazy thing. I know we don't deal with that right now. And it became such a big issue that the government made it illegal to be poor. And so if you want to say, hey, can you help me? Can you give me a handout? It's panhandling. Well, you're poor because you're not allowed to do that, so you're going to go to jail. So a bunch of people started living in the sewers because effectively if you didn't have a home. So history doesn't repeat, but it sure as hell rhymes. And I can say to everyone, the nice thing about the insanity of what we're living through right now is at some point it's going to pass, because it always does, and there will be a new standard, a new normal. Right now, a bunch of different very powerful people are fighting for it. That is, you have just what you said, Indy. You have a group of people that are going to go, you owe nothing, you'll eat insects, you'll be happy. There's another group of people that are saying, eat as much steak as you want, we're going to do oil forever, it'll never run out. There's all these different potential futures that people are creating that want to exist. The reality is, just like everything else, we're going to end up with a hybrid of all of them, because that's what it always ends up with humans anyway, because no single group is going to take power, I don't think. I think that, again, we have a lot of standalone complexes happening where a lot of people's interests are converging. But again, that only works until everyone, again, you can only make 3% every 90 days for so long. And we're getting to the point where companies merging, they just can't do that anymore.